Well, I'm Dan Smith, and I'm the owner of Magnum Enterprises. Um, we make here at Magnum Enterprises the world's largest selection of rubber band guns and a lot of other cool toys, mostly wooden toys. Our rubber band guns utilize a 12 shot, in other cases, a 10 shot trigger mechanism. And so the mechanism is a semi automatic repeating mechanism that allows the shooter of the gun to shoot multiple rubber bands really fast, or as fast as the person wants to pull the trigger. We have two different triggers we use in our product line. One of them we have the molds to, and that trigger's been working fine. But there's another trigger that we use in a smaller number of our guns, to include our great big Gatling gun. That the mold, even though I owned it, it was down at a molding company in Texas. And when I recently got into the injection molding business, I wanted to get my mold out of Texas and up here to South Dakota. Well, when I called the company to get my my mold for this trigger, and this is actually the wheel to the trigger. It's a 10-shot mechanism, a 10-notch mechanism. That company, well, originally I didn't have them ship the mold right away. They found it and said, okay, we got your mold here. We'll ship it when you're ready. So I didn't call them back for another 6 or 8 months. So in the meantime, they lost my mold. I called them back 6 or 8 months later, and they go, well, sorry. And they kept avoiding my phone calls. We lost your mold. And I go, oh no, what am I going to do? I need that trigger. We sell these triggers individually as triggers on the internet and to certain customers who make their own guns, but we also utilize it in about 5 other guns in our product line. And I go, that's not good, because molds are very expensive. So I set out on an endeavor to reverse engineer the part. So having connections with B9 Creations and knowing what they were about, I contacted them and said, can you guys help me reverse engineer this part with your 3D printer? And they said, sure. So one of their employees came over and looked at the trigger with me, and they actually took some of our triggers and they scanned it using their 3-dimensional scanner. They took that digital information, transferred it into the 3D printers which they manufacture, and were able to produce for me some prototype triggers. And that's been great. So we've made 2 or 3 prototype triggers, each time refining the flaws or the little imperfections on the trigger to get it down to the point where it did exactly what we wanted it to do. And so by reverse engineering that trigger through the use of the 3D scanner and the 3D printer, I was able to get a proofed part out of the 3D printer that now I will have drawings for and digital information for, that I can go to a tool maker or a mold maker and have the mold made. You don't want to make a mold without having your part perfectly refined and down and proofed and operating the way you want it to. You want all the dimensions and characteristics of the part you're proofing to be perfect, because molds are very expensive. Not only can they cost thousands, they can cost tens of thousands, and super huge molds can cost hundreds of thousands. But in the case of a small part like this, the mold for this would be probably at least $15,000 if I just went out and had it made. So before you have a tool maker start cutting metal on a mold and drilling out cavities and things like that, you want to have your part perfect, so you don't have to go back and make another mold and spend another $15,000. So that's the benefit of a company like B9 Creations, because they have the ability to turn your part into digital information that can be utilized and in the 3D printer to make prototypes and samples. And through running through a few variations of your samples, I was able to get my part down to where I wanted it, to where it was perfect. And now I can go off to a tool maker and get my new mold made. So it's just been wonderful to do that, because without that ability of scanning and printing on a 3D printer, the whole process would cost me many thousands of dollars more. So B9 Creations, hats off to you guys. You saved me.